So, hello, my name is Georgina Kakoudaki. Thank you for inviting me in this very interesting New York Volume 3 gathering to promote our ideas about the Greek plays in the Greek Play Project. And thank you, Irini, Maria, and the other people of this very interesting gathering for promoting the Greek plays as part of contemporary art, as part of contemporary collective thinking. So my interest here in this little speech about my work will be focusing in two different axes that, in my opinion, they meet somewhere very interesting. And this is the way that we either create new texts from the stage that they derive from texts from antiquity. And the other axis is how we create a model of multi-ethnic, diverse and collective idea of what we need to stage today, not only as a text, but also as a staged experience, as a staged multicultural research. So in the first axis, which is about the text, my experience has lied a lot in my ways of staging ancient Greek plays. I have long experienced that the ancient Greek plays are source texts that we get acquainted with in classes of ancient drama or ancient grammar or syntax. All of the Greeks when we are in the last classes of high school. And in my opinion, the idea of what is a Greek play, like an ancient Greek play, is a very restricted idea, an idea that sometimes is very dogmatic because it derives from a very particular point of view on what is the text about, why it is a part of the curriculum, and also how we deal with the ideals and the processes and the ethics of antiquity in order to be useful today. Well, my opinion is that the way that we can discuss ancient dramas is only if we see how they relate to us today, but not only from a point of view that it has the power of the delivery from the stage to the audience, but also from a point of view that we co-intentionally create a text, either with the actors for it to be promoted in a classroom, or both, that we give a series of workshops to high school students before we even put our pens and pencil on the adaptation of an ancient text. So in my long career in this very serious and very punctual relation of the ancient texts, the way that they're being brought as contemporary texts for adolescent audiences with professional actors that they perform, has always been a matter of whether there is something that remains important, something that in the analysis of the past, something about the Greek energetic democracy that was a parallel event, or maybe the cause already for these sort of plays, how they can relate to somebody who is 15 years old, and how it can create for them an identity proportion, an identity ideal. So the way that these texts were political, in a way that they would provide political thought, both in the content, but also in the form of the dialogue and the monologue, and the way that you could address, if you have a lot of experience as being a spectator, on how to represent yourself or somebody else in the court. I always have liked, I was fond of the idea that these texts can give a similar attitude to the people that they are 15, 16-year-old, and they are about to become civilians. So is there a way that we can communicate the ancient text today and eliminate the things that are a ritual and create new rituals, and eliminate the way that we feel that these texts are like this massive and unreachable cultural policy or cultural past in a pedestal, untouchable, or whether the ideas that are behind them really go into the facts of today. So in my working period, which is now already 15 years that we are going into high schools, and we present the plays, but then we also have a theater pedagogy and extended program with the students, that they go into the positions of the dramatic persona, or they go into the position of how they feel, or we do sociometry or status exercises to understand how we feel about the subjects that they are being presented or asked for. I have seen that there is a growth on the way that the young audiences behave at the end towards the ancient texts themselves, so that the ancient texts are not dogmatic anymore. They are not part of the source book, but they are a part of a community, of a dialogue, and they become contemporary and in a way much more lovable and much more mysterious. So what we actually do is that we relate to the ethos, so like the ethical stature of the dramatic persona and the play itself, but also on the ethos. So the way that it is narrated, whether it is a tragedy, a comedy, whether it talks about very old stuff or contemporary to our present stuff, like if it talks about family, or if it talks about the heroic deeds or the making of the world, which are very different approaches to what is the narration of the drama. And from this point on, me and the actors that always are trained as theater facilitators as well, we always select from every passage and every part of the ancient text the things that we still relate, and we always try to bring it in the present. So this is why our performances, our written text at the end, it always has a subtitle. For example, Antigone, it has the subtitle where we focused, and the theater performance and the theater pedagogy program focused on whether you have the right to have your own opinion, whether school should cultivate the way that you become to the point instead of being a part of a machine, or the way that you have the right to rebel on something instead of following rules. But that also concerning the school life and the process of growing up. Or in another case, when we did the Clouds, a very, very difficult play to perform because it talks about Sophism, Socrates, the way of learning through experience. And then we take this back in a very contemporary content and we perform it in schools. And then always the question is, what is the education that is being provided for you? What is your need? And what is your want? What is your experience? What is your inner belief of what you need to know, and what you actually do need to know for you to survive this very bizarre world that we are living. At the end of this process, we deliver a contemporary text on the stage, which is based on the characters, it's based on the plot, it's based on the ideas, it's based on the ethos and the ethos. But if somebody is not very well acquainted with ancient drama, maybe they will not realize at all that this is an ancient drama, apart from the title that we keep. And this is always a question from dramaturgy, of playwriting, of intellectual rights about the play, on whether it is still the clouds, it is still the birds, or is it still Antigone or Helen by Euripides, the way that we are doing it. In my point of view, and now this is a second axis on my theatrical experience, is the way that we use the text in order to create theater for democracy. So for the last 4 years, starting 2016 and finishing 2020, I was leading a very big in length, in potential, but also in ideology, summer school for actors or people who are in the process of becoming actors. And all the idea behind it is how we can create with multicultural and diverse ways, how we can go back to the text using traditional cultures processings, like the traditional theater of India or the traditional theater of Asian countries like Japan or China, and how we can also implicate the ways of the 20th century directing trends, like the theater of cruelty or realism or Brecht or things like that, in a way that we can make meaning out of the actual meaning that the texts have. So we're trying to create a process where we want to rethink of the plays as canvases, as the one that you see behind me, as the canvases where we can apply strategies of how we actually perform and relate the text to a performance technique or ideology or aesthetics, so that we can reveal the text by itself and create the idea of the chorus, the idea of the messenger, the idea of the conflict between the dramatic persons, and not to try to invent, as has been the way before, a complete and total theater way to invent a way to have with ancient tragedy and comedy, but more to create a fusion idea that relates to the ideas and with all of our common senses of how we perform various parts of ancient texts. So this was a very large and very endearing process for us when we created the Lyceum Epidaurus, and we invited people that they could teach Karakali and Kabuki and No theater and Chinese opera, but also Brechtian or Grotowskian sort of things, or naturalism. And we would try to implicate and absorb a lot of ways that these things can be a part of a process and of an experiment of how we generously perceive the text as a part of a canvas, as a part of a scenario, as a part of a process that indicates a way of staging. So throughout my processes, I always believe that the text is not a thing that it has to be proven by itself, but more of a way that we have a lighthouse that leads us to a way that we understand the staging rather than the text by itself. So this year, I'm going to lead a new concept in the theater of the ancient theater of Dodoni, that is in Epirus. And we again there will try to focus on the way that the plays can be staged and they can become contemporary, and they can be alienated or rethought or reinvented compared to the tradition of the land, like the polyphonic singing, that it is a very big factor in Epirus prefecture, but also in the way that the ancient text relates to questions that we have about very present matters, like what is democracy today, or how we can talk about now, today, through a lighthouse text that comes from a very, very fundamental for the Western thinking period. So I will make a pause here and thank you for hearing me out. I think that what the Greek Play Project is doing is very important because it creates a path, a way to discover new writings. And because of our position, our upbringing, and our schooling, it's very, very often that the content of the text relates to some ideas, to some ethics, and to some traditional ways that we, the Greeks, are still being as individual or as collectivities today. So thank you very much. And I will be around the Greek Play Project if there is more interest about the way that we, the Greeks, are trying to create a new language about what is Greek still. But Greek, of course, is universal. So thank you very much.